Explore the greatest British breakthroughs in an hour. Now, all the sights and smells of the best of the RHS Chelsea Flower Show.
Hello and welcome to a special week of programmes celebrating the very best of the greatest horticultural event in the world, the RHS Chelsea Flower Show. This iconic annual event has hugely influenced our love and understanding of gardening for decades and has been a mainstay of the British summer since 1913. Sadly, due to the recent events, the gates of the Royal Hospital grounds are closed to the tens of thousands of visitors who normally flock to the show, with the designers and growers pressing the pause button on the Chelsea designs and exhibits for this year. In these unprecedented times, we are bringing Chelsea to you in a very different way, sharing some of our favourite moments from the archives and catching up with our team of experts who, like me, are all at home, thanks to the wonders of modern technology. And it wouldn't be Chelsea for me without the companionship of my good friend, Joe Swift, who I can speak to now, I think, at his home in London. Joe, are you there?
I'm here, Monty, yeah. Nice to see you, nice to see you.
And you, haven't seen you for ages. How are you keeping?
Keeping well, actually, yeah. The garden has become more important than ever. I mean, it's a complete sanctuary. You know, you're out there in rural Herefordshire, I'm here in urban Hackney. Couldn't get more different, but we've both got our own outdoor spaces, which is amazing. So, yeah, we're doing okay, thanks. How about you?
One of the worst things for me means I haven't been able to see my grandson for 5 weeks, but I guess that's not too great a price to pay, given how lucky I have been with the garden. Anyway, what's coming up in the next week, Joe?
Well, Monty, every night this week, we'll be looking back at some of Chelsea's greatest moments of the past 10 years. And believe me, there are lots to choose from. If you love gardens, then you'll love Chelsea. And our passionate team of gardening experts will be joining us every night to bring you the plants, the people, and the stories that make this the greatest show on earth.
Now, we can't be all together, so we'll be dropping in on them remotely as they work from home to share their latest top tips to make your garden the best it possibly can be this summer.
In tonight's show, Monty, we're kicking off in style by celebrating everything that makes this event the best of British. We revisit the greatest designs created by the exceptional homegrown talent who have made Chelsea their home. We're looking at the classic blooms that light up the Great Pavilion and the characters that make the event a quintessentially British affair. Plus, from the royal family to celebrity VIPs, we discover how Chelsea remains a firm fixture in the summer calendar.
Yes, the show must go on. And now it's time when we need gardens like never before. So, without further ado, let's launch into this week of floral excellence and remind ourselves why Chelsea is still the greatest flower show of all. Chelsea started life as a humble 3-day gathering of gardeners in May 1913. In the early days, the show was the domain of the landed gentry, who shared their passion for big blousy blooms, new plant discoveries and rock gardens. Fast forward over 100 years and now Chelsea is a world leader in innovation, plantsmanship and showmanship. Chelsea stage today, we see design let loose. Gardeners break molds, challenge preconceptions, and open a world of new possibilities. Traditional, formal gardening is given a whole new twist. Landscapes show us the art of gardening in inaccessible places. Aspirational designs help us to reimagine our outside spaces as extensions of our homes. At Chelsea, gardens entertain, inform, and even make us question what a garden is. Its backbone is the Great Pavilion, where people from across the globe gather to share their passion for plants. If it appears at Chelsea, every gardener wants it. Marking the start of the summer season, the great and the good flock to see and be seen. Yet it still remains a quintessentially British affair at its heart, with its pensioners, picnics, and of course, Her Majesty the Queen. The large show gardens on Main Avenue are the domain of a group of designers that create the new and often unimaginable. And that influences the way that we look at our own gardens in a completely new way. Now, much of this talent is homegrown and returns to the show year after year. And here is a reminder of some of the big names that have graced Main Avenue in recent years.
Designing a garden at Chelsea takes nerves of steel, and this is where you'll find the top names in the business. This pool of design talent may all be British, but they're also an eclectic mix that draws their skills and inspiration from the length and breadth of the country. Every one of them brings their own unique touch to garden design. Some have been exhibiting on Main Avenue for years, while others are just stepping out and making their mark here. But all of these designers are big thinkers. Ambitious and creative, you need real vision to succeed here. New looks, contemporary twists and traditional classics inspire and enthuse the rest of us. Whether modern or traditional is their signature style, every one of them plans for the highest level of craftsmanship and planting. There's an unparalleled standard set at this show, and maintaining that quality year on year is a challenge that these designers face every time they go for gold.
Of the designers that have become part of the fabric of Chelsea over the past few decades, a select few have earned the title Chelsea Icon, and Chris Beardshaw is definitely one of them. Returning year on year, he's famed for his considerate and sensitive approach, marrying herbaceous planting beautifully with a thoughtful, contemporary look on each of his gardens. Often reflective, there's a strong story through each and every one of his creations. So it's no surprise that he's won numerous golds and best show gardens. Let's enjoy some of his finest work.
Now, Chris, you said that you thought this garden wouldn't do well, it wouldn't be liked, because it had rhododendrons and azaleas and they were out of fashion. And look what's happened, a gold medal, everybody clearly loves it.
I know, and I feel really foolish for saying that now because, you know, I should have had better faith, I suppose. But they are just, I mean, when was the last time you saw rhodies and azaleas on the embankment? You know, it's got to be 12, 15 years ago.
Well, it's true, but actually I like that. I like the fact that they're back here again, and I think you could be the man to bring them back into fashion.
Well, maybe. I hope people are convinced that they have real garden merits, and you know, it's not just about the big and blousy ones. You know, things like these rhododendron luteum behind us here with wonderful fragrance, and more subtle ones like Loch Leven here. So, you know, let's hope that they are looked on more favourably.
Definitely.
I'm not at all surprised that Chris Beardshaw's Healthy Cities Garden has won a gold medal, because it's got quality written all over it. There's a lot going on here. There are statues, and there's hedges, and there's planting, and there's water, and there's a story behind it, because this is part of a project which is ongoing in the East End of London, and the whole garden is going to be relocated. It's just passing through Chelsea. You've got the Thames represented with the water, the configuration, the knot garden represents the Islamic community as well as the rope makers in East London. I love the way Chris has used these low hedges, much wider than they're high, and that's balanced against the slightly shaggy looseness of the field maples, which is a tree that I like to see in gardens. You don't see enough. But there's one other feature which I think makes it stand out from almost any other garden in the show, and that is the quality of the plants themselves, not just the way they're arranged, which is beautiful, but the health of the plants. They do seem to be just bursting with health and at the perfect point. And if you can get your plants looking as good as that, then the rest of the garden is bound to look good. Throughout this week, we'll continue to celebrate some of the other designers that have consistently inspired us with their creations on Main Avenue, and every one of them has made a unique contribution to this event over the years. Now, while the designers shine bright on Main Avenue, it mustn't be forgotten that Chelsea is a mecca for British growers. And for a week in May, the Great Pavilion becomes the beating heart of British horticulture. Wouldn't you say that was true, Joe?
Oh, no doubt about it. Just walking in there, the sights and the smells is amazing, isn't it, Monty? Fantastic. And from all over the UK, they bring their amazing specialist knowledge and passion to the Great Pavilion to showcase, share and inspire all who visit. And the nurseries and plants people who can exhibit here have to show world-class plants, and their expertise is second to none. They're just the one to go to if you want some information on growing something in particular. But they're also a really resilient collection of folk who strive through increasingly unpredictable seasons to produce world-class plants and dazzling displays.
Well, a few years ago, Joe, I had the luck of having the Great Pavilion completely to myself to enjoy a few private moments with just the plants and to soak up the atmosphere early in the morning before the bustle of the day began. It's just after 5 in the morning, and I've been allowed in here to the Great Pavilion when there is no one else here. And it's as though it's frozen in time because everything is completely ready, waiting for the judges to come, but just poised, holding still. There's just a sense that someone has filled a sack with all the most glorious flowers in the world and then just tip them out and see where they spread. Although some of the stands inside the pavilion are very elaborate, like little mini gardens, I love the single displays. So you just have lupins or lilies, carnivorous plants, or just a bank of fuchsias, and it's like some exotic market with the stalls just laying out their glorious wares. It's past 6:30 now, and the Great Pavilion is starting to bustle with people and noise and preparation. And that early dawn moment of stillness is gone. But I'm very grateful I had the opportunity to experience it. And it's time for breakfast. There are very few occasions when you can experience that quiet moment at Chelsea. The scent of all those plants and grass is a wonderful way to start the morning. And once the day warms up, it harnesses an energetic buzz that nobody enjoys more than our very own Queen of the Pavilion, Carol Klein, who's currently in her home at Devon.
Just like Joe and Monty, I'm so thrilled that we're able to share with you some of our best Chelsea moments, even though we are at home. But thanks to my intrepid cameraman Neil, my husband, at least I'm coming to you in real time. Over the years, I've visited Chelsea many, many times. And of course, I always head for the Great Pavilion, but the very first time I went there, it was as an exhibitor. So I've got a fair idea of the sense of community that exists between all the people in there. And just what a lot of hard work goes into it. And how disappointed they must all be. After all, it's the climax of the year. But our intrepid British horticulturalists have made sure that we can carry on gardening by sending us plants and seeds by mail order. Well, many of us have a fair selection of plants in our own gardens. But in the Great Pavilion, there are literally thousands and thousands of plants from all over the world. I'll miss seeing them and sharing them with you. But you wait till next year, when everything and everybody comes together at Chelsea. It's a theatrical spectacle. It's plant paradise. Roll up, and welcome to the greatest floral carnival on earth. It's time to perk up your petals, pump out that perfume, and turn your very best side to the cameras. It's time to dive into this oceanic display of clematis. Here on Raymond Everson Clematis, wave after wave of pastel perfection. You can almost hear the sound of the sea. And now it's time to step up the tempo on Kevet Garden Plants with these clouds of kinetic colour. Forget Glastonbury, the festival season starts right here, right now. No gala performance would be complete without its superstars. And these aren't just any old orchids. These are amongst the best in the world from the Eric Young Foundation in Jersey. How lucky we are that they've graced us with their presence.
Oh, Carol, she loves getting dressed up, doesn't she? But it's just great to see those growers all in the Great Pavilion. You know, they are the backbone of the Chelsea Flower Show. And one of the nurserymen who is rooted into the British psyche is David Austin. He was one of the most celebrated rose breeders of all time. And sadly, David passed away in 2018 at the grand old age of 92. And he spent 6 decades breeding beautiful fragrant roses and sharing his passion for them. Now, Mary Berry, a fellow rose admirer, went to meet David Austin Jr. last year to find out how he is building on his father's legacy.
I've always loved roses. They're romantic, they're beautiful, and I especially love the pastel shades. One of the great highlights of my year is coming to Chelsea, and when I think of roses, I think of David Austin. I'm meeting David's son, also named David, in the family's private garden. Look who we've got here.
We've got the peacock.
A great friend of yours.
Yeah.
How did your father first become involved with roses?
It came from an interest in gardening, really. From a very young age, he was designing gardens for his mother, and he just used to look at seed catalogues when he was a boy, and then he got into the idea of plant breeding, and he had an ambition right from the beginning to do something in terms of plant breeding, and he picked the rose because he felt there was something he could do with the rose. The rose at the time was dominated by the hybrid tea, which he didn't like. He loved old-fashioned roses, which he'd seen in his own garden.
How many roses in the whole of your father's life did he produce?
He was quite prolific, 3 to 5 a year, and it numbers over 200.
David, it's so exciting to see this blaze of colour. I'm dying to smell them. Let me have a look. Oh, that is sheer heaven. What a depth.
It's incredible. It's a very fruity fragrance, incredibly strong. And this is Gabriel Oak, named after Thomas Hardy novel. It's a beautiful rose. I'm really pleased to see it's obviously in flower.
And the second rose you've got?
Eustacia Vine. That's equally fragrant. It's absolutely incredible. 2 highly fragrant varieties, and we're delighted.
This year, again, another go. How many have you had?
This is our 25th gold medal, which is obviously amazing for us to think.
How proud your father would be.
Absolutely, and obviously this is the first year that he's not with us, and we're extremely honoured that the RHS allowed us to do something in memory for him, and we have a beautiful display around the memorial stand right in the centre of the show, and that's very poignant.
David, thank you. I'm sad to leave this paradise.
That's very kind of you to say.
Well, some beautiful roses there, and good luck to David Austin Jr. in the future to keep the family business going. Now, our natural landscapes have provided a rich source of inspiration for many of the garden designers. Some have gone as far as reimagining and recreating whole slices of the British countryside on Main Avenue. In 2016, revered British designer Cleve West brought us a garden influenced by his childhood memories of Exmoor. His resulting garden was a truly magical space that won him a much-deserved gold medal.
Cleve, I think this is the best piece of work I've ever seen you do, and as you know, I've been following and sort of admiring you for a long time now. Does it feel like a special piece of work to you?
Yeah, I think I'm sure it's the best show garden I've done at Chelsea.
Why?
Well, because it's personal. It's based on my memories of living on Porlock on Exmoor, and all those memories are infused in this garden in some way. So it carries a level of emotion which I think makes a good garden.
And there are certain things about it which are quite sort of risky. So, for example, this space is very open. Yeah. A lot of people would have filled it with something.
Yes, I actually did put a CAD drawing of a table and chairs in here and quickly whipped it out again because it looked wrong.
And these lovely big blocks of stone. This stone looks very different. Why did you choose it compared to the natural stone?
It is actually the same stone. This rusty-looking stone, when you saw it in half, is blue.
Really? You see, you would never think that. But maybe that's why it works.
Well, I think I was very nervous about using it, but we held a nerve, and fortunately it looks great. Much better than I anticipated.
Now, the planting isn't native, is it? You've got all kinds of things going on, even though this is based so much in place. Why is that?
Well, I didn't want to recreate Exmoor. This was really just, I wanted to make a garden that was based on those memories, but not a recreation, because I couldn't better Exmoor.
So it's a garden that's personal, but clearly other people can't know those rules.
No, and it's a very self-indulgent garden, and I'm sorry for that. But it's, I think it makes a better garden. It comes from the heart, Monty. That's what it does.
Well, it does come through, and if everybody enjoys it as much as I have already, and I'm looking forward to spending the rest of the week, then I think you're going to give a lot of people a lot of pleasure.
Good, thank you very much.
Cleve and others like Dan Pearson have shown that the rise in a naturalistic style of design is a trend that is growing in popularity, not just in show gardens, but also in our gardens at home. And this is something that I think now, Joe, is the dominant trend in gardens, don't you?
There's no doubt about it, yeah. People are looking for, well, a look that's just less uptight, frankly. You know, the rigidity of formal hedges and traditional borders, well, they're fine, but they've been softened with even weeds, wildflowers and hedgerow plants sort of creeping in to, say, extend the stage. And it's great for wildlife too, and it's all about working in partnership with nature, you know, planting with wilder-looking plants, not always native plants at all, doesn't have to be, but creating this fluidity amongst the plants in a show garden is much more challenging than it looks, Monty.
Well, I'm standing surrounded by cow parsley that has taken enormous skill on my behalf in order to get these weeds to come in. But certainly it would be really difficult to recreate this as a show garden. And over the years, our own Rachel Detain has visited some of the champions of this style to find out how that they have taken this cue from the natural world to put their gardens together.
Sam Ovens achieves a spectacularly naturalistic feel here. It's a garden based on heathland. And he uses a wonderful mix of plants, largely held together with this grass, Descampsia cespitosa. And then through that, you get these little highlights of colour. And some of them are not native. He's got potentilla with that little zingy orange, and of course the agapanthus here from South Africa. But you don't have to leave British shores in order to achieve that sort of wonderful naturalness. Catherine, your garden has the most magical atmosphere, and I think it is this really naturalistic planting.
Just wanted to do something with our British native species, to try and encourage people to perhaps use them in their own garden and appreciate them a little more.
How easy do you think it would be for somebody to try and recreate this kind of effect in their own garden?
I think it would be fairly easy. I mean, a lot of the species are plants that are readily available, and it's Betula pendula, the British native silver birch, underplanted with British native species.
It is something to do as well with this way that you've got the whole thing from the canopy right through. You've got the hornbeam hedging as well, so you've got that wonderful layering of plants that gives it that natural quality. Works beautifully.
Thank you.
I love the irony behind the naming of this garden. It's called the High Maintenance Garden for the Motor Neurone Disease Association. And it shows what might happen to a previously very cultivated space if the owner isn't able to maintain the garden to that standard anymore. And actually, I think it's wonderfully encouraging, very refreshing. You've got plants really that seem to have grown where they've landed. And then we just walk through a trodden path down through what frankly are, well, most people would consider weeds. But there are cultivated areas still. You can see the astrantias and the hostas, but I think it just shows that perhaps we all need to just be a little bit more easygoing about our gardens. Let nature in, let all of those important insects and wildlife into our spaces as well. And I'll tell you what, it makes me feel an awful lot better about the fact that I don't have time to go home tonight and do the weeding.
I think there's a lot to be said in letting in nature and taking a relaxed or naturalistic approach to the planting in your garden. And Mark Lane is a huge fan of this style of planting, so much so that this is how he has planted his own garden at home.
I love naturalistic planting. With my partner Jason, who by the way is doing the filming and I think is doing a really good job, and I moved here, there was this wonderful silver birch tree, Betula pendula, with these wonderful drooping branches that would just sway in the wind with really fresh lime green leaves. It sort of dictated really the type of planting that I wanted to do in this part of the garden. I wanted to go for that sort of prairie, naturalistic wild and meadow feel. But how do you go about it? Well, it's quite simple. You got the height from the tree, then you want to add a mid layer with shrubs. Now don't clump your shrubs together, you want to dot them around so it looks more natural. Why not put in something like this, the Euphorbia wolfenii, with lovely lime green zesty flowers? But a naturalistic garden isn't one without ornamental grasses. This is Anamanthale. It's absolutely gorgeous with its sort of burnt browns and green fronds, or even the wonderful evergreen Carex. You could also add vertical height with Angelica sylvestris. But of course, if you then plant your herbaceous perennials, they'll pop up through the grasses. Again, don't clump them together. Scatter them throughout the border so it looks more natural, as if they've self-seeded themselves. But why not try bulbs? This is the wonderful Camassia. It's a North American prairie plant and therefore is absolutely perfect for a naturalistic scheme. So go on, go wild, be freer and go natural.
There's no question, Joe, that this has become the predominant and much loved style, and it does exactly tune in with the mood of the times, I think.
Yeah, certainly. I think during very stressful times, to sit in a naturalistic style garden, it's the perfect antidote, isn't it, really?
Well, talking of stressful times, the last few months have certainly been stressful for all British growers. And of course, many of them were due to exhibit in the Great Pavilion this week.
Yeah, they're having a really hard time, and I just hope that they can weather this storm. Some of them are just small family businesses, and they're going to really feel the hit this year. But you know, we can still buy plants, mail order, online. They're still posting them out there, so I'm buying loads of plants for my garden. We've got to keep them going. You know, got to keep supporting them.
We need to support them, and a few of the nurseries actually were keen to share with us what they planned for this year and to reveal the new plants which would have made their debut at Chelsea. Now, we follow government guidelines and went along to visit the first of these nurseries, which was Darcy and Everest in Huntington.
My name's Luke Whiting, and this is Darcy and Everest. We're an alpine specialist nursery. So these are our stock beds behind us, and normally stocked full to the brim, so where I'd be standing would be full of plants, and this year empty and desolate. As soon as we found out Chelsea wasn't going ahead, it was like a sucker punch. It was devastating for us. We had all the debts of winter and all the plants on the ground ready for show season, and nowhere to sell it other than online, and that was a very small part of our business. But now people are wanting to buy plants online because there's no garden centres, and so we're getting that extra trade, and it's so nice to see the appreciation from customers. It's just, for us, so heartwarming. Behind us is the Chelsea display, so what we would have actually taken to Chelsea this year if it was going ahead, we've actually now erected onto the nursery just here. The exhibit this time is all about self-contained gardens, just showing people how you can get something quite expansive into a small area on the modern people's gardens. The one plant we're releasing for Chelsea this year, but it's going to be anyway, is our own breed, and it's Saxifraga Dotty Darcy. As with all our releases when we release them for Chelsea, in previous years, always guaranteed to flower for Chelsea. We have a Chelsea curse. Everything that we release at Chelsea never flowers on the year we release it. So you can see here, tight in flowering stem, and so the curse still prevails even when Chelsea isn't on. The future, very hopeful. 2021 is only a year away. We can survive till then.
Well, it's just great to see the nurseries fighting on. We'll be catching up with some more of the growers every night this week. But tonight we've got plenty of other great British gems in store. Still to come, Adam Frost will be finding out how you can create a peaceful atmosphere in your own outdoor space with a little bit of inspiration from the Chelsea Show Gardens.
We'll be reliving some of our favourite moments with the famous faces that flock to Chelsea each year. And tonight, we rewind to 2017, when I met the national treasure, Joanna Lumley.
And in keeping with tradition, we'll be taking a look at how the royal family have supported great British horticulture for over a century, even going as far as designing their own Chelsea Show Gardens.
There's more to Chelsea than the glamour of show gardens. Years of work goes into every pavilion display too. From the large-scale nurseries to individual growers with polytunnels in their back gardens, they all have one thing in common: a devoted passion for their plants. In 2015, we visited a couple who regularly delight visitors with their spiky succulents and are living proof that you can achieve Chelsea Gold growing from home.
Not only are we partners in business, we are also partners in life, shall we say.
If you want to take some elephant's feet with us, we can do.
We first met at a cactus show. Oh, my first impression of Stan, I can't really remember it properly, to be honest. You don't think people like us are going to end up at such a prestigious world event. We get people that say their plants don't seem to be growing, they've had them for 20 years, and it turns out they've not been watering them, they've not been feeding them. So no wonder the plants aren't doing anything. Just like us, they need water to survive. You got this one as well?
Yes, please.
I've got
Thank
to go
you.
on, there you go.
There we go. On we go.
Once we got the feel of Chelsea, we thought, well, why don't we have some cactus-related outfits? I like my bit of bling. We've got the traditional saguaro cactus, we've got the opuntias, and now we've got Stanley.
With the shirt.
With the shirt. See the cacti on it? Just a bit of fun. We're not showing you this year's because that is under wraps. Here's to Chelsea. Let's hope we do okay.
Yes.
Well, I'm here with Vicky and Stan, so revealing the outfits for Chelsea 2015. Ta-da!
Here
Look
we
at that.
are.
I should have brought my sunglasses with me.
Yep.
I don't need a high...
Need 'em.
Well, you don't need a high-vis.
No, we'd get away without a high vis today.
It's showtime, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Chelsea showtime.
Yeah.
The show.
Stan, you're looking cool in your shirt.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. And your exhibit is looking really cool too.
Well-
How do you get the plants together? How does that actually work? Do you just go and pick them when they're looking really great and think, well, that's going to be perfect for the exhibit? Or do you earmark them months
We will
ago?
look at the inside the polytunnel and select what we have. I mean, we don't have... We have selection, so we've got a number of the same, and so we can pick the best out of them and bring them along.
And it was interesting to see that you do actually water them quite regularly, quite a lot.
We have people that say they've had a plant for 20 years and it's not grown. And I'll say, well, do you water and feed it? Oh, no, I'll give it an odd drop of water. Every so often. But then I'll say to them, would you survive 20 years without having anything to eat or drink? And then they sort of look at you in a different way. But no, they're living things at the end of the day.
Yeah. Now, any medal predictions?
No, none at all.
Never?
No, never, never. Never think about the middle.
I think it's beautiful. I think you two are beautiful. Congratulations with your exhibit and good luck.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, what a great duo, and they've really helped to propel cacti into the horticultural big time. Now, if there's one thing we as a nation of gardeners are dedicated to, it's our bulbs. In our gardens, window boxes and vases, they provide a pop of colour just when you need it. Well, back in 2017, Francis Tophill made a beeline to the pavilion to find out more about the bulbs that bring Chelsea and our gardens to life each year.
Bulbs are a vital part of our gardens throughout the whole growing season. And here in the Great Pavilion, we are spoilt for choice. For me, daffodils always herald the beginning of spring. On this stand, there are around 70 different varieties of a genus that contains 25,000 different cultivars. And they're not all yellow trumpets. There are pink ones, like the precocious, and there are multi-headed ones, and even very scented ones, like Soleil d'Or. So there really is no excuse not to grow them. Where a daffodil is a classic bulb, gladioli are actually corms, which essentially does the same thing. It stores all of the nutrients, but a bulb is made from a root storage and a corm is stem storage. And gladioli are a little more complicated to grow. They need protection from the frost, so either a heavy mulch or being lifted in the winter, unless you live in a very sheltered position. Gladioli flower about 100 days after planting, so if you want flowers all through the summer, plant a few every week. But I think you'll agree, they are worth the effort. Lilies make a wonderful addition to your garden or as cut flowers in your home, and just look at the array of colours that they come in. So beautiful. And they really couldn't be easier to grow. They need a well-drained soil and a bit of sunshine. Don't cram them too closely, either in the ground or in containers, and maybe 2 to 3 times the depth of the bulb. But I mean, just look at that. Kendra with a beautiful double flower and an amazing scent. And for me, that's what lilies really are all about. It's incredible. If you are a bulb lover like me, then it's not too late to plant something that will flower this year. Nerine Baudenii is a great example, and they will grow anywhere as long as it's sunny and sheltered with fairly good drainage. Just plant the bulbs so the neck is slightly proud of the soil, and you'll have floral perfection right through the autumn. Now, since 2017, I have gone and got myself my own allotment where I've spent many a fruitful hour and grown lots of the flowers I love, which of course includes many bulbs. The only bulbs I have on the allotment now which are currently looking good, or actually I should say about to, because they're all about to flower, are my alliums. I planted them last autumn and I put them all in my cut flower bed because they make fantastic cut flowers. They last really, really well as flowers, or you can let them go to seed and then hang them upside down and dry them as seed heads, which will last indefinitely in displays of dried flowers. They love my allotment because it's very sandy soil and it's in full sun all day long, which is exactly what alliums like. But if you don't have that, then you can add some sand or some grit to your soil, and in worst case scenarios, lift them in the winter, and then you'll have them coming back every single year and looking magnificent. At this time of year, bulbs are usually either in their full glory or they've just gone over, which means that they're hard to buy. But there is one that you can buy and plant right now, and it's called calla lily, Xantadeschia. They are so beautiful, a huge array of colours, deep blacks, bright oranges and bright pinks, just to name a few. Now, when you're planting them, make sure they're quite shallow and in a free draining soil, and always bring them in the winter because they're tender. But plant them now and you'll have amazing colour this summer. This time of year, don't forget to deadhead your bulbs. It stops them producing seeds and means they can save all their energy for next year's flowers. This year, many of us find we have a lot more time to really stop and enjoy the spring and work out what it is that we want for next year in our gardens. But don't wait until then to order your bulbs. Get your catalogues out now, have a look through and start making plans and ordering from local nurseries whatever you want to flower and look beautiful in your garden this time next year.
Across the week, Adam Frost will be raiding the show gardens at Chelsea in search of the different ways that you can create that little bit of extra magic at home. Tonight, Adam takes us back to 2018 to rediscover how the garden designers went about creating a peaceful atmosphere despite the hustle and bustle of Chelsea all around them.
You know, I think all of us sometimes, even if it's only for a few minutes, want to get away from everything. How do you go about creating that peace in your own back garden? This really is absolutely stunning. And water will bring peace to any space. I like the idea of maybe a slow-moving stream or a pot on a terrace that'll bring wildlife into that space. Something like this that's still, reflective surface that will bring a sense of calm. You might even have a noisy neighbour that running water will drown out. Think about what really works for you. I know, not everybody can have one of these. It's Chelsea. But the idea of enclosure can work really well in the garden. It gives a sense of comfort, a sense of security, even privacy. And think about using trellis or hedges, even a little summer house at the end of the garden. This sunken space is another great way of adding peace to your garden. I've come down a few steps, and the moment I sit down, I feel more comfortable in the landscape. Maybe there's an opportunity for you at home, even if it's a small space, you could create a little sort of lower area. But then also with this, it's a simplicity of the materials. There's a really sort of continuity, which means nothing jars, so you feel at ease. And then added to that, there's a real scent in this planting, which just gives a tranquility to the whole thing. This little idea works really well. I've come through an archway, which instantly slows me down, makes me feel like I'm going somewhere else. And then I've got a curved pathway that's going away from me. I don't quite know where it's going, so I want to explore. But actually the path's really thin, so it says it's just for one person. But then on top of that, the surface is really textured, which means you can't move over it quickly. But all the time I'm moving around this path, I've got a focal point just in front of me. And then I arrive at this sort of lovely old rock. Sit down. You know, you could sit here for a bit. I could even read a book. But it feels cooler. That tree is giving me some shade. I look around me and the plant is mostly green. And I can feel everything just slow down. But in reality, you don't need the stone path, you don't need the boulder to do that. Maybe you've got a shady little place in a border that you could put a seat. Your path could work its way to it, but it could be of a sort of a chunky gravel that just slows that movement to get there. So actually, in reality, you don't need to be a Chelsea designer to have a little bit of peace in your garden. Even with all the years I've been going to the Chelsea Flower Show, I still come home inspired to do something in my own garden. I don't know about you, but over the last few months, I've really craved just those moments of peace. And I don't think you need a massive garden to provide those moments. It's just about thinking about different areas of the garden. Where are you drawn to in the morning with that cup of tea? What about the end of the day with a nice glass of wine or beer and the sun's going down on your back? Privacy, that really adds peace to your garden. Could you build a little arbour, tuck yourself behind some trellis or under a tree? And the seating in our gardens, you know, using movable seating so you can go to different areas. I've even been known just to find a spot in a border, take a large pot, turn it upside down and put myself in the border. The moment I've done that, my eye line changes and I'm interacting with the wildlife around me and everything just calms down. So I really don't think you need a massive garden to find just a moment of peace in your own space.
Now, one Chelsea regular who has also captured the hearts of the nation is the actor Joanna Lumley. I caught up with her on one of her many visits to the show to find out why she's just wild about Chelsea. For all its internationalism, Chelsea is quintessentially a British affair and always lures the most famous faces, especially on the Monday on press day. But amongst the most famous and perhaps most British of them all, I have with me Joanna Lumley. Joanna, it's lovely to see you here.
Hello, Monty, thank you.
Do you come to Chelsea often? Are you a regular?
I do. I'm lucky enough to come most years, and most years on a Monday, and I love that. But the very first time I came, I was about 18, and I was staying with my aunt in Earl's Court. And it was Friday when they sold off the plants in those days. That was the end of the Chelsea Flower Show. And I remember buying a lily that high in a pot and not realising that I didn't know how to get back to Earl's Court. And I got a lift in an ice cream van. And the fare he exacted from me was a kiss. That's the 60s for you.
Yes. And are you a gardener? I mean, presumably you wouldn't have been buying plants if you were.
No, I am a gardener. We've got a long, thin garden in Stockwell, which the kind people who sold us the house maybe a quarter of a century ago had divided into three rooms, as it were. So in the first bit, people go, oh my goodness, how lovely, you've got a garden. And they go, oh my gosh, you can go through here. And then through here, you come to fish ponds and a great big pear tree over there. And they go, oh, but it goes on. And then you go down to the end, and there's a walnut tree, enormous, which I planted. And I just adore it, Monty, because we pick our own pears, apples, plums. We've got walnuts. I've never managed to get one because the squirrels get there first. Figs are plenty, brown turkey figs. Lemons.
Really?
I picked in my lemon crop yesterday.
And do you keep them?
About 2 kilos of lemons.
Do you keep them outside all winter?
Outside all winter, and I don't even put stuff around them.
See, I couldn't do that at home.
No, but this is London, you know, this is the heat of London.
Yeah.
It's divine, I love it. I should put in here that it's what I would call a wild garden, which is how I love it.
Yeah.
A little bit, maybe a little bit too wild for me. Chaos.
An abandoned garden. And do you love it because of the way it looks or because of the wildlife it attracts, or what is it that you like?
I'm very keen on wildlife, butterflies and insects and bees.
So what do you take from Chelsea?
Oh, I just adore it here. I feel that if you didn't have a faith and you came to Chelsea and looked at what's here, you'd end up believing in a new god, which is nature, the oldest god of all.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks,
Thank
Monty.
you.
Wise words there from Joanna Lumley, and there certainly is something very spiritual about Chelsea, but there has also always been a strong sense of history at the show too. Many of the designers have sought inspiration from Britain's heritage and history. In 2015, Wellington College's Living Legacy Garden marked the 200th anniversary of the Battle of Waterloo with a nod to the architecture of the 150-year-old school itself. The artisans are packed with gardens that hark back to a bygone era. From the Trugmaker's Garden, which won a gold for its depiction of the traditional Sussex baskets, to the IBTC Lowestoft Broadland Boat Builders Garden, which showcased traditional boat building skills used in the Norfolk Broads. Now, another designer with an eye on history and heritage is multi-RHS medal-winning Jo Thompson. From the Industrial Revolution to our nation's love of caravanning. Yes, I once had a kip in her caravan. The UK provides ample inspiration for her Chelsea designs. In 2012, Jo broke new ground by bringing the first caravan onto the showground as a homage to holidays in the great British countryside. It caused quite a stir with the public, and rumours were that designers, oh, that might even be me, were using it to catch up on their sleep. In 2019, Jo took her cue from our industrial heartlands with the Wedgwood Garden. But it was in 2016 that she scooped gold with her garden that drew on the heritage and architecture of the British Army's former Chelsea Barracks. Well, I'm here on Jo Thompson's garden, and Jo, you got a gold!
I'm so delighted. I am. Oh,
that elusive gold.
I know, and I'm just so delighted. It was a really, really complicated garden. It's meant to be a simple garden, but all the complicated detail that goes into it makes
but
it.
It's so elegant. I love the way the water comes down, and it just keeps moving and through this reel and all the way. And the shape of these benches, I just love them. They are so elegant. They're beautiful, I have to say. Well, the whole garden's fantastic, and I love the sculptures too. What is the pull about Chelsea here?
It gives you a chance to make a garden that hopefully people will like, and I really just love doing that.
Yeah. I've got a funny feeling we're going to see you quite soon. Congratulations on your goal. The judges loved it. Well done, Jo.
Thank you.
Now, over the years, the royal family have been ever present at the RHS Chelsea Flower Show, supporting the designers and growers who've put in a huge amount of work to exhibit there. And they really add to the prestige event, don't they, Monty? Monty, have you ever met the Queen? And let me rephrase that, Monty. Has the Queen ever met you, Monty?
Well, I have met the Queen, but not at Chelsea, Jo. Have you met the Queen at Chelsea?
Oh, well, it's funny you asked that. Yes, because when I did my 2012 garden, you know, my gold-winning garden, you weren't there. You were travelling around the world filming something else.
I was unable to be there, Jo, but I realised I missed the highlight.
I think it was the 1 year you didn't make it, actually. Anyway, I had the most surreal moment. The Queen turned up. She watches the Chelsea Flower Show, so she knew who I was, which was quite strange. And I knew who she was because she's the Queen. Well, and one day, we should all get together and meet her at the Chelsea Flower Show, Monty.
Well, Jo, I know who you are, and I know who the Queen is. So, in fact, we're all completely in the picture and on song. Let's make a date. Let's hope that there's a chance for us all to get together.
This time next year, I'll see you there.
Well, the royal connection with the show actually goes back past Jo to 1913, and so they're very at home at Chelsea. And in recent years, they have even pitched in and helped design gardens themselves. In 2015, Prince Harry gave Her Majesty the Queen a tour of his charity's Scented Barley Garden, designed by Matt Keithley, to raise awareness about the charity's work in improving health and education in Lesotho, using traditional building materials and native wildflowers to evoke the South African landscape. The popular garden went on to win the People's Choice Award that year. Last year, Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Cambridge co-designed the Back to Nature garden with the landscape architects Andre Davis and Adam White. I talked to the Duchess about her involvement and discovered that the garden had become a truly family affair. The Duchess has not only been involved at every stage of design, but also down here at the showground,
helping put it together, getting her hands dirty. So I thought I'd take the opportunity to have a chat with her. We're at Chelsea. Is this as you thought it would be?
It's really exciting. I love the craftsmanship that's gone into it from the guys who worked in the garden. It's extraordinary. I really feel that sort of nature, being interactive outdoors, has huge benefits on our physical and mental well-being, particularly for young kiddies. I think people nowadays miss out on just being outdoors. Everyone's glued to their phones or spending time inside, and I think particularly kids are missing out on a huge amount.
What's happening over there? That's half.
Yes,
half
come and have a look. Yeah. A lot of the bits I've been collecting with the kiddies, so old bricks, we've got a fire pit at home. One of the things we love doing is sort of cooking, making dens. I did that as a girl. It's a fun way for the kids to be experimental. There's no rules, is there? I get as much enthusiasm as building dens as my children do, trust me.
The plant isn't yet finished, but
No.
clearly you've got woodland, subtle planting.
Yeah.
What you're trying to achieve.
Well, a lot of the ideas and the inspirations of the things to put into the garden and the colour scheme actually came from childhood memories, really. And one of my strongest memories was walking through the bluebells with my grandmother, and it had such a lasting, I suppose, impact for me, and that's why we really wanted to keep the colour palette really simple and to give that just a really powerful sort of blue impression that you get when you walk through bluebell woods.
We've still got a few days to go. I think it looks fantastic.
Thank you.
I
You're
think
very
you should be
kind.
really proud, and the
Thank
public
you.
will love it.
Well, Monty, I think we've shown what a great institution the Chelsea Flower Show is, and it hasn't stopped us bringing some coverage either, has it? The show must go on.
Well, it sort of has, despite your and my best efforts. And I've no doubt that actually we'll all be back next year to relish in the show, hopefully not from a remote distance, however lovely our gardens are at the moment, because I don't know about you, but lovely as you are at this distance, Joe, I'm missing the show.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you were missing me then, Monty.
No,
of course.
no, it's all right.
We're all missing the show big time, big time.
Yeah, but that's almost all we have time for tonight. But just to remind you that you can still vote for the BBC RHS People's Choice Garden of the Decade. You can see all 10 gardens on our website, which is bbc.co.uk/Chelsea, where you can vote for your favourite. And you'll also find the terms and privacy notice. Now, the vote does close at 11 o'clock tonight, so you do need to get on with it. And please don't try and vote if you're watching on demand. And Joe and Sophie will announce the winner on BBC One this Sunday.
And join us tomorrow evening when we'll be taking a horticultural journey around the world to marvel at the exotic plants and show-stopping gardens inspired by global landscapes and cultures. We'll also be meeting some of the international designers and growers who make the pilgrimage to Chelsea each year.
It has been a real pleasure to bring you these uplifting and inspiring Chelsea moments this evening. And we'd like to thank all of the families of our presenters who've been holding cameras and juggling microphones so that Joe and I could bring you this programme. And we will both be back with you tomorrow evening with our team. So until then, it's good night from both of us. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.